Hello sweet friends, welcome back to another video. My name is Casey and today I'm going to be sharing with you some books that are on my physical TBR. I'm a very seasonal reader. I always like to make my seasonal TBRs, but there are books that I own and that I pick up because I want to read them that don't always fit within those seasonal kind of criteria, or they don't match the vibe of the season. So I thought I would share with you 10 books that are on my TBR that I want to read really soon, but don't necessarily fit a season. So let's get to it. The first book that I have is Long Island by Colm Toíbín. This is the sequel to the novel Brooklyn, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Brooklyn follows Ellis. She is a young woman from Ireland and she is going to Brooklyn to seek out new opportunities for herself and to kind of financially support her family. And she's kind of having to choose between this new life that she's creating for herself versus the life that she left behind in the family and friends and opportunities that she is going to leave behind. So this follows Ellis in her 40s. So she's kind of made her decision and she's out there, trying to live her life when her life is kind of upended, and then it's kind of causing her to journey back into the circumstances and the situation that she didn't choose before. And I'm being kind of aloof just because I don't want to spoil anything if you've not read Brooklyn, because it is an amazing book and it's also a really beautiful film with Saoirse Ronan if you've never seen it. But I'm really excited. It says that Long Island is about longings unfulfilled, even unrecognized. The silences in Ellis's life are thunderous and dangerous, and there's no one more depth than Toíbín at giving them language. So I'm really, really excited to read this one. Personally, when I read Brooklyn, I wasn't as happy with the choice that was made. So I'm really curious to just kind of see how everything unfolds in this one. Ideally, I would love to reread Brooklyn and then go straight into this one. The next book that I have is On the Savage Side by Tiffany McDaniel. I read Betty by Tiffany McDaniel a couple years ago, and to this day it is one of my favorite books of all time. It is one of the most profound and thought-provoking and harrowing and heartbreaking and heavy book that I have ever read, and I knew that I wanted to read more from her, so I've got On the Savage Side here. This follows two young women. They are twins and their names are Arcade and Daffodil. It goes into their upbringing within the 1950s and the generational ghosts and tragedies that haunt their family. So this is mostly taking place when they are adults, and it's loosely based upon the Chillicothe Six, which were unsolved murders that happened in Ohio. And I guess Tiffany McDaniel wrote this as kind of an elegy for missing women. I'm really excited about this one. I know that it's going to be quite heavy and quite hard to swallow if it is anything like Betty. But again, I just really loved Tiffany McDaniel's writing. Chillicothe isn't that far away from where I live either. I live in Kentucky, and I've been to Chillicothe before, so I think that adds a little bit more meaning to it. I think when you can like physically place and really physically see the places that you're reading about. On the back it says, characters will break the reader's heart with their longing and vulnerable loves. A trio of women who could have been queens in a different parade. I love that. It says a glittering web of brutality and childlike innocence. So it says, dedicated to the memory of 6 women who disappeared or were killed in Chillicothe, Ohio, the novel asks pressing questions about why society deems some injustices tragic and others merely inconvenient. If all women whose sufferings have been ignored could have an artist as gifted, if only all women whose suffering has been ignored could have had an artist as gifted as McDaniel. I am really excited about this one. Next, switching up gears a little bit, I have Heated Rivalry by Reid. I, like most others, watched the series and absolutely loved it. I was definitely interested in the novel and had seen it around, but I really, knew that I would get to it, but it just to me seemed like a just cutesy little romance. But I think when I watched the series, it really had so much emotional depth. And I think sometimes when we see cartoon covers for romance books, we have a lot of trouble realizing or just kind of assuming that there's going to be a lot of emotional depth in these kinds of stories. But I just was just flabbergasted with the show and how beautiful it was done, and the longing and the slow burn and just the communications between the characters. I just absolutely loved it. And as soon as I watched it and then rewatched it and maybe rewatched it a third time, I did go ahead and order the novel. So this follows Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov. So they are hockey players. Ilya is from Russia and Shane is from Canada, and they are rivals. So they're kind of rookies together, and they're kind of pitted together, like with the media, as this like rookie rival. Except obviously they privately actually have kind of romantic feelings for each other. It says the smart thing to do would be to walk away once a few secret hookups turn into a struggle to keep their relationship out of the press. The truth could ruin them both. So again, I'm really excited to just kind of see this play out on page, and then to read the next book. And I think there's a third one coming out this summer. And then, it'll be kind of fun to kind of see it be adapted here further with like the future seasons. Next book that I have is The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I've actually never read anything with Sherlock Holmes, and the only thing that I really know about Sherlock Holmes is the Benedict Cumberbatch BBC series from way back in the day. Was obsessed with that show, and I don't know how accurate that is. I've not seen any of the other adaptations, and I actually don't know a ton about the stories, but I know that this is a collection of 12 stories, and they venture back to Victorian London. So it has Sherlock and Dr. Watson. So these are their best known cases. Yeah, I'm really excited to kind of get to try a new author, get to read some little mysteries. I think that'll be really fun. This is the painted edition by Harper Muse. My husband bought this for me. But it has like snow and Christmassy kind of scenes on it. So I think I will definitely, even though I said that these aren't books that I want to read seasonally, I probably will have to pick this one up in the winter time just because of the cover. Next, I have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I've heard so many good things about this book, and I've seen vlogs where people have read this book and just talked about how life-changing it is and how beautiful and how thought-provoking and the emotions that they felt, and just how it's become one of their favorite books of all time. And so it's always just kind of been on my radar. I've also seen that it's being adapted with Daisy Edgar Jones, and she's an actress who I really like to watch, and I feel like she picks pretty good scripts. So I'm excited for that as well. But this follows Sam and Sadie. It says in the December of his junior year at Harvard, he exits a subway and sees Sadie. He calls her name. For a moment, she pretends she hasn't heard him, but then she turns and a game begins. It's a legendary collaboration that will launch them to stardom. So they're friends since childhood, and they create like a blockbuster film, and I guess it's just kind of spanning their life within 30 years. It says it explores the nature of identity, disability, failure, and redemptive possibilities in play, and above all, our need to connect, to love, and be loved. So I'm really excited. I think that this sounds very much my cup of tea in terms of a more literary book. I definitely want to read more literary fiction. I used to read, which is taking up a lot of this kind of TBR. I feel like seasonally I always tend to go more for classics, more for like cute little romances that are set in that season. So I think overall, outside of kind of reading seasonally, I always have those more prominent literary works on my mind. And I'm really, really excited for this one. This is one that I'm always like, I'm going to pick up next, I'm going to pick up next, I'm going to pick up next, and then I never do. So hopefully I get to it really soon. I have some romantasy, and this is The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. I love this cover. These are being newly released in these special editions, but they have really beautiful sprayed edges, and then underneath the dust jacket, it's really, really pretty as well. But this, I think, is kind of like an enemies to lovers book. It says a warrior princess has been trained in isolation. Lara is driven by two certainties. The first is that King Aaron of the Bridge Kingdom is her enemy, and the second is that she'll be the one to bring him to her knees. So basically, I guess she is sent to the Bridge Kingdom as a bride under the guise of peace, and then she's supposed to kind of infiltrate his defenses, and it says have a deeper understanding of the war to possess the bridge, which I'm assuming probably has some economic things, but I'm really excited for this one. I read The Saga of the Unfated by Danielle Jensen last year, and I loved her writing of the romance and the slow burn of it. I thought it was really, really beautiful. So I definitely wanted to try more from her, and I had just kind of seen this series. I heard a lot of really great things about it, and with them being released this stunningly, it just seemed like the perfect time to go ahead and read this one so I could collect these beautiful editions as well. Next, I have another more literary book, which is The Blue Sisters by Coco. Mellors, I'm not entirely for sure how you pronounce her last name. So this follows 4 sisters. 3 of them are still alive and 1 of them has passed away, and it follows the sisters on their story of grief. It says a year later, they navigate grief, addiction, and ambition. They must return to New York to stop the sale of the apartment they were raised in, but coming home is never as easy as it seems. The sisters reckon with their disappointments of their childhood and the loss of the only person who held them together. So I'm really excited for this one. Again, in terms of a more literary style of novel, this really sounds like my cup of tea. I loved Sally Rooney's newest novel, Intermezzo, and how it went into the idea of grief, and obviously that was the grief of a parent, not the grief of a sibling, but I really enjoyed kind of that exploration. So I'm really excited to give this one a go. I also really want to read Cleopatra and Frankenstein as well, so I'm hoping I love this one a lot. That way I'll, have the need, or I guess the okay, to go ahead and buy Cleopatra and Frankenstein and read that one next. But really excited. This is a book that I see everywhere, and again, it's one that I hear it was so remarkable. It's a book that I see like on TikTok, what people mention their favorite books, or books that exceeded their expectations, or books that are 5 stars or whatever. So again, what I'm really excited for. And again, this is another one that I'm always like, I'll get to that one next. I'll get to that one next. And then I never do. So hopefully really soon. Next, I have Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. I love Divine Rivals, and this is kind of a prequel to Divine Rivals. And when this was coming out, I was a little hesitant to read it and to give it a go because I wanted to see what other people thought. Most of the reviews I've seen have been really favorable, but there is one person who I'm friends with on social media who did not give it a favorable review. So I am still a little hesitant going into this, but I am excited. I think that this is a stunning cover, and kind of like with the Bridge Kingdom, it's really beautiful under the dust jacket as well. But I think that this follows a goddess named Matilda. It says that she's the youngest of her clan. And she has magic that she can use to carry words and letters through realms, which ties in very strongly to Divine Rivals if you read it. But I guess there is a mortal man who dreams of her, and once, I guess he like begged the goddess. They were friends within dreams, and I guess he kind of became hardened because like she wasn't real or reality to him. And I guess that they come together in some way. I don't really know a ton, and I feel like, I don't know, I like this kind of bit on the dust jacket because I think that it keeps you guessing and it doesn't really give you a ton of the plot details, which I think will be really exciting. But here it says, Dear Matilda, I wrote, I let the words, flow for her, and when the ink dried, I gave my very heart to the fire. So I'm really excited. I think that this will be a really great book to get lost in. And I'm excited to read more of Rebecca Ross's writing as well. Next, I have Foster by Claire Keegan. I read Small Things Like These a couple winters ago, and I loved that book so much. It's one of my favorite books of all time. And I knew that I wanted to read more Claire Keegan. My friend picked this up for me not too long after I finished that novel, I think. Or I think these are more like novellas because they're quite small. But so she picked this up either like that following Christmas or for my birthday or something like that. But this tells the story of a young child in Ireland. It says that she's taken by her father, and she has to live with relatives on the farm. So she's basically taken from her home and put into foster care. It says she finds affection and warmth that she has not known, and she kind of blossoms. But there's also something unspoken in this household. And I think, all is not quite what it seems, but I'm just really excited to read more of Claire Keegan's writing. I think she has a really poetic way of putting really heavy things into words and covering really heavy topics that maybe in just a way that's not overly traumatizing or overdone, but still shows you the horrors of those experiences. Um, I really can't wait to read more from her. And this is, again, one, it's quite short, so I don't know why I've not picked it up yet. It is 92 pages, so hopefully this is one we can pick up. I have The Four Winds by Kristin Hannah. I've read a handful of Kristin Hannah books and I've enjoyed them all, but I think The Nightingale still remains my favorite. I bought this book years ago, and I keep putting off reading it just because I've heard it's so sad. And all Kristin Hannah books are sad. Like, if you've read any of her books, they are sad. But I've heard this one is like exceptionally sad. So it just makes me nervous to read it. I don't know why, but this starts in Texas in 1921, right after World War I, and basically a young woman is deemed too old to marry, but she makes an impulsive choice and is forced to get married to Rafe, which is a man that she barely knows. So now it's in 1934, and it is the Great Depression, and she's living in the Great Plains with the dust storms, and everything is dying on the farm. She has I think, a very unhappy, maybe even violent marriage, and it says each day is a desperate battle against nature and a fight to keep her children alive. So it says she must make an agonizing choice, fight for the land she loves, or leave it behind and go west to California in search of a better life for her family. It says it's an enduring battle between the haves and the have-nots, a testament to hope, resilience, and the strength of the human spirit to survive adversity. So I am really excited. Again, I just keep putting it off because I've heard that it's sad, and I don't know. I used to be the kind of person that loved a good cry from a movie or loved a good cry from a book, but I think in the recent years, or as I've gotten older, and maybe because life is heavier, family members are older, my friends go through things, or maybe just the state of the world, I feel like life is so heavy that I have a little bit more trouble picking up these heavier books. But it's definitely one that I really, really want to read. And there's a couple other Kristin Hannah books that I want to read. I want to read The Women, and then the one, it's like The Winter Garden, the one that's set in Russia. So it's like I have to read this one before I can justify going out and getting those, you know? So maybe eventually. It is one on my radar. It is one that I look at all the time, but I don't know. If you've read this one, this is probably the one that I want to hear your thoughts, what you think, if you think I'd love it the most. So do let me know. All right, friends, that sums up some books on my physical TBR. I will definitely do another one of these in the future as I start knocking some of these off. And obviously, I'm a reader. I'm constantly buying books and finding new books that I want to read. But yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, or if you have any recommendations for me based upon these. I really appreciate you listening to me babble on, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye!